For neither... What's going on, everybody? Brandon here from Gearist, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 910 version 4 from New Balance. Before we really get into today's review, I want to ask you guys to leave some comments down below. What more do you want to see from us? Do you want to see more reviews? Do you want to see more articles? Do you want to see more Ask Gearist? Do you want to see more tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff? We do have a lot of things in the pipeline, but we want to be sure that we're doing what you guys want to see. So be sure to let us know down in the comments, and also stick around for the question of the day, which comes up right after the review, so we can get even more of your feedback. And now let's start talking about the 910 version 4. Now, the last time that we were talking about the 910, it was in version 2 of this shoe. If you'd like to check out that review, you can click the links down in the description below. Now, in its 4th iteration, both Lori and I were able to test this shoe. And in addition to that, this was actually Lori's race shoe for the Deception Pass 50K, which was just a part of the over 155 miles that Lori put on this shoe. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about, as always, is the outsole of this guy right here. Now, as you can see, we've got a full coverage rubber outsole, full contact, no cutaways really here in the medial or the lateral side. This is hydrohesion rubber, which is a proprietary compound made by New Balance, which is meant to be sticky when wet, hence the hydrohesion. Get it? Wet, sticky. So this is meant to handle a lot of different terrain. So Lori, who is currently living in Virginia, is dealing with a bit more wet terrain than I would deal with here, which is quite a bit more dry in Colorado. Now, the lugs themselves are not particularly aggressive. They're right about 3 millimeters deep, which you may be able to see there, and they're made of this kind of cut off triangle design. We've seen this in a lot of New Balance shoes, trail shoes rather, in the past, and it does a really good job of being a nice omnidirectional traction device. In the forefoot of the 910 version 4, we see 4 flex grooves, 1, 2, 3, and then kind of this one right here along this sagittal plane. And embedded beneath that, that blue that you can see right through there, that is a bit of the rock stop rock plate, which we'll get into a little bit more in the midsole section. Even with the flex grooves, and this may be more a byproduct of the midsole than the outsole, this is still kind of a stiff shoe. It's got some pop, and we can talk about that, but it is not something that's super flexible. So if that's what you're looking for, you may want to step past this one. Well, this is my shoe, which has about 30-ish miles on it. Lori's shoe, again, having over 155 miles on it, shows very, very little, if any, real signs of wear. And that's including a lot of varied terrain, whether it's rocky, whether it's damp, whether it's rooty, whether it's dirty and dusty and dry. Lori's been on all of those, including in race conditions, and hers is really held up very, very well. Traction and ground feel in this is very good. Again, we really like this cutoff triangle design that they've got here, and they've really stuck with it for quite a while, so it's nice to see them doing something that works. As we move into the midsole, we find a single density Revlite foam with a stack height of 26 millimeters in the heel and 18 millimeters in the forefoot for a net drop of 8 millimeters. Now, with those measurements, I could tell that there was some drop. It's not super noticeable, but if you are looking for a closer to 0 drop shoe, you're probably going to be aware of that 8 millimeters in difference. Lori, on the other hand, who tends to run very much up on her forefoot, where I'm much more landing with the whole foot, Lori didn't really notice that drop as much because, again, her foot lands here and then kind of settles back onto the heel, so it wasn't such a big deal for her. The midsole is fairly cushioned. There's a decent amount underfoot there, but with that cushion, it is still a little bit stiff, as we mentioned a second ago. The embedded rock stop rock plate, which I pointed out earlier, is only in the forefoot, or the front half of the shoe here. It does a nice job protecting the shoe from the ground without really deadening the feel too much. Neither for Lori or myself was there any real break-in period out of the box. We felt like this is very comfortable, and in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Lori's first run out of the box in the shoe was something like 20 miles or something like that. So that really speaks to the job of this material really working with the foot straight away. And now, as we move into the upper of the 910 version 4, we actually, both of us, thought that, there are a lot of overlays on this upper. It is not a very breathable shoe. Truly, the only place where there is good breathability for the mesh is right over here over top of the vamp, because everything before that is covered in overlays. You can see this is a solid overlay, this is a solid overlay, this is the spot where it kind of opens up and lets some of that air through. Now, while that is kind of a trade-off with not a lot of debris and finer things like that being able to get through, since there's less mesh on the upper of this shoe, it is a bit of a trade-off, because what do you do with when it gets hot, or if you have a water crossing or something like that? There's really no way for water to effectively drain out of this. The lowest part is right there, and that's still got a raised area above the midsole, so it's still going to kind of form a bathtub effect in there if you had a water crossing. So that is something to keep in mind. The remainder of the upper, apart from this mesh area, is a bunch of bonded overlays. They are super heavy duty, and it really does very nicely on off-camber terrain. Both Lori and I, when I was running in this, had a lot of experience where we were kind of going off like this, especially Lori when she was in more rooty stuff that she finds back east. This did a nice job, and even though it is kind of plasticky feeling, because that's simply the TPU is what those overlays are made of, it is very comfortable, believe it or not. On the interior, there's quite a bit of foam, which makes it very comfortable and keeps additional debris out around the collar there, around the Achilles insert. And we've got a partial booty construction, if you may be able to see right there, which is basically a piece of lightweight mesh, that stretch mesh, that is right about where my fingers are there on either side of the foot. Keeps that nice lockdown feel. In Lori's 155 plus miles and my roughly 30 miles in this, neither one of us showed really any signs of wear, any picking or pulls or anything like that, apart from just being a little bit dirty. And speaking of dirty, you guys will love this. Recently, somebody in one of the comments of one of our reviews was like, hey man, clean the shoes before you review them. Dude, we use these things. I mean, what do you want us to do? Now, as we move into fit on the 910 version 4, both Lori and myself found this fit exactly where we'd expect it to be. Runs true to size. My size 11 men's fits exactly where I'd expect a size 11 men's to fit, and likewise for Lori and her women's size 9. While this does go back to a little bit of that pointy toe thing that New Balance does from time to time, we both felt like there was plenty of room for wiggle and splay, lots of room for that foot to work in there without being overly swimmy. And as we get into the ride, this is one of those places where you feel stiffness in a shoe, and depending on who you are and what you prefer in a running shoe, it can be kind of a detractor for you. But both Lori and I found that, that stiffness gave it quite a bit of response and pop on a trail, especially that kind of accelerating uphill stuff, which gets to be a little bit harder and you're asking more of your body. So while you're using that eccentric muscle action, this is actually really helping along with that as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Lori did use this for the Deception Pass 50K in Washington State, and she really wanted to choose a shoe that would cater to that kind of rocky, muddy, and slippery terrain that she was probably going to encounter. And this is why she chose this shoe. Although it was a little bit stiff, that ground response and pop that it gave back to her was really something that affected the way that she felt even later into the run. And it provided enough cushion for that 50K to not really be a problem. And one of the words she used to describe this over and over was just such a smooth ride. And I really felt that too when I was running in this prior to my car crash. Back to Lori's race again, she actually loved the ride in this so much that she ran it in another 50K just, I think, like a week ago. So it's really been her real go-to shoe this season. Overall, the New Balance 910 version 4 is one of those shoes that's really approachable by a vast array of runners. Now again, it may be a little bit stiffer than some people would like to see. It may be a little bit heavier, with the men's size 9 coming in at 10.4 ounces and a women's size 8 coming in at 9 ounces. Not the lightest thing in the world, but also not super heavy. As far as price goes, the original MSRP on this was $110, but right now, if you check the links down in the description, you can find it for as low as $60 in the links that we've got down there. So definitely check it out. I mean, it's a really, really fantastic deal for such kind of a universal quiver shoe like this. Again, if you're looking for a really good all-around shoe that's going to be able to tackle a wide variety of terrain, it's not super aggressive, but it's also not something that's going to leave you with a really super harsh ride, the 910 version 4 from New Balance is definitely one of those things that you should at least try on. Now, before we get into the question of the day, I want to ask you guys to please subscribe to this channel. Just click that little subscribe button. It's right down there, and that would help us out a whole lot. Also, we love to hear your comments, whether it's here in the comments on YouTube or on Facebook, or there are comments that you can leave us on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Also, don't forget the Gearist Sock of the Month Club. We've got some super high performance custom socks. These guys right here are the latest pair. They're really awesome. We got this diamond pattern up here, hand woven, made in the USA. Hand woven. I don't think there's a machine involved. they are knit in the USA. So definitely be sure to go to gearist.com/shop, and you could get these either as one pair, or you could join the Sock of the Month Club and get them for even cheaper. Now, here's our question of the day. Well, we've been talking a little bit about stiffness with the 910 version 4. So how stiff do you like a shoe in terms of 1 to 10? So let's say 1 is like just like a barefoot. There's nothing there. It's going to be like a Vivo barefoot shoe or something like that. And 10 being a shoe that doesn't move at all, like a Brooks Beast, let's just say. Where do you fall in that? How much flexibility do you like to have in your shoe? And what do you like it for? Do you like a variety of stiffness? Do you like one stiffness for trail and one different one for road? Let us know down in the comments section below. Once again, guys, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all those things. Just search for Gearist and we will come up. Also, don't forget to hashtag your posts on Twitter and Instagram. I'm a Gearist, I-M-A-G-E-A-R-I-S-T. I think that's right up here or here. It's around here somewhere. Definitely check that out. And guys, once again, get out there, get sweaty, and we will see you next time.